The grand chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with the voices of 200 different species. Light from 3 suns streamed through the crystal dome above. At the center of the room, a circular table stretched nearly 50 meters across. The most powerful beings in the galaxy sat around it, each representing their homeworlds. Ambassador Chen Wei of Earth sat quietly at her designated seat. Unlike the other delegates who wore elaborate robes and ceremonial armor, she dressed in a simple blue suit. Her eyes, tired from 3 days of debate, focused on High Counselor Zaxos. The motion regarding human expansion has passed, Zaxos announced. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of satisfaction among his kind. By a vote of 178 to 22, the Council has determined that human expansion beyond the Sol system poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. Chen's face showed no emotion. She had expected this outcome for weeks. Effective immediately, Zaxos continued. All human colony ships must return to Sol space. No new human settlements will be approved. Existing human outposts beyond Sol will have 5 standard years to relocate. A small gasp came from the Tellurian delegate. The restriction was more severe than most had anticipated. Even the anti-human faction seemed surprised by the harshness of the final ruling. Chen stood up slowly. The room fell silent. Everyone expected an angry speech or a threat. Humans were known for their passionate responses. The delegation of Earth acknowledges the Council's decision, she said simply. We will comply with the return order. She gathered her datapad and nodded to her assistants. They rose in unison. Ambassador Chen, called Zaxos, his tone revealing his surprise at her calm acceptance. Would you like to make a statement for the record? Chen paused at the chamber door. No, High Counselor. Earth has nothing further to add at this time. As the human delegation left, excited chatter filled the chamber. Most species viewed this as a victory. Humans had advanced too quickly, built too much, learned too fast. In just 75 years since joining the Council, they had established a dozen colonies and integrated their technology with countless alien systems. Many older species found this threatening. They took that well, said Counselor Vrax, his scaled skin gleaming under the lights. I expected more resistance. Too well, muttered Nixtaran, the Tellurian delegate. A veteran diplomat who had spent 20 years on Earth, he knew humans better than most. That worries me. Why? Laughed Vrax. They're going back to their corner of space. This solves everything. Nixtaran's antennae twitched nervously. In my time studying humans, I learned they have a saying, beware the fury of a patient man. Their calm concerns me more than any anger would. Nonsense, said High Counselor Zaxos, ending the discussion. The problem is solved. Now we move to the next order of business. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Chen stood before the United Earth Government Council in New Geneva. The chamber was nothing like the Grand Galactic Council room. It was practical, with simple wooden walls and modest seating for 50 representatives. And so, Chen concluded her report. We have been effectively confined to our solar system. All colonies must be abandoned within 5 standard years. President Okafor nodded slowly. Unlike the Galactic Council's reaction, no one in the Earth chamber seemed surprised or outraged. Thank you, Ambassador, Okafor said. General Williams, your assessment? A tall woman in a military uniform stood up. The withdrawal is already 15% complete. Colony ships are returning on schedule. We estimate full compliance within 3 standard years, well ahead of the deadline. And Operation Silent Running? Asked Okafor. Proceeding according to plan, Williams replied. Phase 1 is complete. Phase 2 begins next month. Okafor turned to a thin man with silver hair. Dr. Kaminsky, status of the Omega projects? Dr. Kaminsky adjusted his glasses. All 17 Omega projects have been moved to secure facilities within Sol. Teams report we can actually work more efficiently without having to hide advancements. From Council observers. And the quantum shield? Okafor pressed. 93% operational, Kaminsky answered. Full coverage of Earth and Mars within 2 months. The entire Sol system within 6. Okafor nodded and turned to face the entire assembly. For 75 years, we played by their rules. We limited our growth. We shared some technologies while hiding others. We fought their wars. We healed their sick. We fed their hungry. And in return, they grew more fearful of us with each passing year. The room remained silent as she continued. Today, We enact the Solitude Protocol. We will withdraw, not just physically, but completely. Every human business, every human doctor, every human ship will return home. We will leave them to their precious stability. What of our allies? Asked a counselor from Africa Union. Not all species supported this ban. They had their chance to stand with us, Okafor replied. Those who did will receive private channels of communication. The rest will learn what our absence truly means. On the desert world of Praximius IV, Dr. Lena Patel packed her medical supplies. Around her, alien patients watched with growing concern. You cannot leave, begged Krex, a local elder whose life she had saved twice. The nearest qualified xenobiologist is 3 systems away. Council orders, Patel said simply. All humans must return to Sol. But your hospital treats 2,000 patients daily. Patel sealed the last crate. I've trained your assistants as best I could. The council has 5 years to find replacements. We voted against the ban, Krex said. Our representative argued for humans. Patel's expression softened. I know. That's why I'm leaving you 3 years' worth of medications. Other worlds won't be so fortunate. In the Galactic Council's central archives, Chief Librarian Zoltek found Nixitaran studying a historical display. Still worried about the humans? Zoltek asked. Nixitaran pointed to the display showing the humans' first contact with the Council. Did you know that before joining us they fought 3 global wars among themselves? In the last one, they nearly destroyed their civilization. All the more reason to contain them, Zoltek said. You misunderstand, Nixitaran replied. After that war, they rebuilt their entire world in just 50 years. They went from primitive fission weapons to faster-than-light travel in less than a century. No other species has ever advanced so quickly. What's your point? My point is that humans are defined by how they respond to challenges. We haven't contained them. We've unified them. And history shows that a unified humanity is... He trailed off, his antennae drooping. Is what? Pressed Zoltek. Unstoppable, Nixitaran whispered. 1 month after the decree, the first reports came in. A farming colony in the Centauri sector reported crop failures. The specialized wheat strain developed by human agronomists had needed regular genetic adjustments to remain viable in alien soil. 2 months after, 3 major shipping companies declared bankruptcy. Their navigation systems, maintained by human technicians, had begun failing without regular updates. 3 months after, the first hospital closed on Rigel Prime. Without human doctors and their specialized treatments, certain complex surgeries became impossible to perform. In a small chamber off the main council hall, Zaxos met privately with 5 senior counselors. The situations are concerning, he admitted, but temporary. We will adapt. Adapt? Sputtered Vrax. Do you know how many systems relied on human maintenance? How many of our ships used human-designed components? We managed before they joined us, Zaxos countered. And we grew dependent on them after, said another counselor. The humans were careful. They made themselves essential without making it obvious. Nixitaran, who had been invited due to his expertise on humans, spoke softly. They're not just leaving. They're leaving us to see what breaks. What do you mean? Asked Zaxos. In human history, Nixitaran explained, when they felt unappreciated, workers would sometimes perform what they called a slowdown or work to rule. Not a rebellion, just doing exactly what was required and nothing more. Soon their value became clear. You think this is some kind of demonstration? Zaxos looked troubled. I think, said Nixitaran, we are about to discover exactly how much we relied on a species we just expelled. Outside the window, they watched as yet another human ship quietly lifted off, heading toward the distant Sol system, taking with it resources, knowledge, and skills the Council was only beginning to realize it couldn't afford to lose. 6 months had passed since the Council's decree. What began as isolated incidents had grown into a galaxy-wide problem. In the bustling trade hub of Nexus Station, Portmaster Greltalk stared at the status board with growing anxiety. Nearly 40% of scheduled shipments were delayed or canceled. Supply chains that had functioned smoothly for centuries were now breaking down. Another human transport company has ceased operations, reported his assistant. Galaxy Express Shipping. They serviced over 300 worlds. Greltalk's tentacles twisted in frustration. What about their ships? Their routes? Can't someone else take over? Their ships returned to Sol, the assistant explained. and their navigation data was proprietary. Without their continuous updates, the routes through the Cygnus Nebula are too dangerous to attempt, so the entire Cygnus sector is now cut off. Effectively, yes, at least until new routes can be mapped. Greltok sighed. How long will that take? The Cartographers Guild estimates 3 years. On Hestelix Prime, known for its vast agricultural complexes that fed dozens of worlds, Governor Zis called an emergency meeting. The situation is worse than we feared, she told the assembled officials. 70% of our primary food crops are failing. Without the enzyme treatments developed by human biochemists, the soil is rapidly losing fertility. Can't we reproduce their treatments? Asked a local scientist. We've tried, Zis replied. The formulas they provided were simplified versions. The humans kept certain key components secret, claiming patent protection under council law. How convenient, muttered an official. It was entirely legal, Zis said sharply. We accepted their terms because their products worked better than anything else available. Now we're paying the price for that dependence. What about food reserves? Someone asked. Enough for 8 months, Zis answered. After that, we'll need emergency shipments from other agricultural worlds, most of whom are facing similar problems, added another voice. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. In the Council Medical Center on Rigel Prime, Chief Physician Noor stood before rows of suspended animation pods. Each contained a patient with conditions too complex for current treatment. 643 patients, she told the visiting council representative, all requiring procedures only human doctors could perform. Surely that's an exaggeration, the representative said. Humans haven't been the only doctors in the galaxy. No, but they were the best at certain specialties, Noor explained, particularly neural reconstruction and genetic repair. Their unusual biology gave them insights other species lacked. And these patients? In stasis until we either develop alternative treatments or… Noor left the sentence unfinished. The representative looked uncomfortable. The council is working to address these healthcare gaps. Good, Noor said coldly. Perhaps start with explaining to these families why their loved ones must wait, because we sent away the only doctors who could help them. On the Galactic Council's central world, Harmonious Unity, High Counselor Zaxos reviewed the growing list of crises. Each day brought new reports of systems failing, supplies dwindling, or technologies malfunctioning without human maintenance. How did we not see this coming? He asked Nixitaran, who had become his unofficial advisor on human matters. We saw only what threatened us, Nixitaran replied. Their military capabilities, their rapid expansion, their unconventional thinking. We didn't see how deeply they had integrated into our society. Was it deliberate? A plan to make us dependent on them? Nixitaran's antennae swayed thoughtfully. Not exactly. Humans naturally solve problems. They see inefficiency and fix it. They encounter obstacles and overcome them. Over 75 years, they simply did what comes naturally to them. They improved things. And now? Now we learn which of those improvements were essential. Their conversation was interrupted by a junior counselor rushing into the chamber. High Counselor, urgent news from the Proxima monitoring station, the aide said breathlessly. They've detected massive energy signatures from Sol system, more powerful than anything we've recorded before. Zaxos frowned. Military preparations? Unknown. The readings don't match any weapon signatures in our database. Send a probe, Zaxos ordered. We need to know what they're building. Deep within Earth's Marianas Trench, Engineer Commander Sofia Alvarez supervised final adjustments to the quantum shield generator. Similar installations dotted Earth's oceans and were positioned throughout the solar system. Power flow stable at 87%, reported a technician. Harmonic resonance within acceptable parameters. Good, Alvarez said. Synchronize with the lunar array and begin Phase 3 testing. On her monitor, a simulation showed a web of energy gradually enveloping Earth, then extending outward toward the orbit of Mars. President Okafor's voice came through her communicator. Progress report, Commander? On schedule, Madam President. The shield network will be fully operational within 2 weeks. Excellent. And the space-time distortion effect? Working perfectly, Alvarez confirmed. Once activated, the shield will create a localized bubble that will make Sol system extremely difficult to detect, approach, or scan. And the Sentinel platforms? All 300 are in position. If anything does manage to penetrate the shield, they'll know, Very good, Okafor said. The Council has launched a probe. Let it observe the shield construction. Make sure it gets good readings. Alvarez raised an eyebrow. You want them to see our defenses? Yes, Okafor replied. I want them to know exactly what they've pushed us to create. Back on Harmonious Unity, the Council chamber had become a scene of chaos. Representatives argued loudly over resources, emergency measures, and who was to blame for the current crisis. My world has lost 60% of its medical capacity, shouted the Regelian delegate. At least your people can eat, countered the representative from Hestalix. Our food production is collapsing. Zaxos pounded his ceremonial staff on the floor. Order, we must maintain order. As the noise subsided, Councillor Vrax spoke. Perhaps we should reconsider our position on human expansion. A murmur ran through the assembly. The decision was made, Zaxos stated firmly, for good reasons. Were they good reasons? Asked another counselor. Or were they based on fear? Before Zaxos could respond, the doors opened and a science officer entered. All eyes turned to him. Report from the Sol Probe High Counselor, he announced. We've confirmed the energy signatures. The humans are constructing some kind of massive energy shield around their entire system. Displays around the chamber activated, showing images of enormous structures in Earth orbit and throughout their solar system. Is it a weapon? Someone asked. No, the officer replied. It appears to be purely defensive. But its scale. Nothing like this has ever been built before. How could they create something so advanced so quickly? Zaxos wondered aloud. Nixtaran stepped forward. They already had the technology. They've been holding back. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. That's impossible, Vrax finally said. We monitored their development. All member species share their technological advances. They shared what they wanted us to see, Nixtaran explained. Think about it. Humans went from atmospheric flight to faster-than-light travel in less than 100 years. Did you really believe they stopped innovating at exactly the level of technology the Council possessed? You're saying they deliberately concealed their true capabilities? Zaxos looked troubled. Wouldn't you if you joined a galactic community that immediately began treating you with suspicion? Nixtaran countered. They showed us enough to be useful, but not enough to be feared. Until now, the science officer cleared his throat. There's more. The shield appears designed to create some kind of space-time distortion. Once fully activated, it could effectively remove the entire Sol system from normal detection. They're going to disappear, Nixtaran realized. Cut themselves off completely. Can we stop them? Asked Zaxos. The probe detected 300 defensive platforms surrounding the shield perimeter, the officer reported, each with enough firepower to destroy a capital ship. They're not preventing observation, but they've made intervention impossible. Zaxos slumped in his chair. So we can watch, but we cannot interfere. Exactly, said Nixitaran. Just as they had to watch us vote to confine them, unable to prevent our decision. On the distant mining colony of Ceres Beta, the last human ship prepared for departure, 200 human miners and engineers had transformed this once barren asteroid into one of the most productive rare mineral sources in the sector. Colony Director Marcus, Chen supervised as the last equipment was loaded. You're taking everything? Asked Doral, the local alien administrator. Even the automated systems? Council orders, Chen replied simply. All human technology must return to Sol, but without your mining drones, production will drop by 70%. Chen shrugged. You should have thought of that before supporting the expansion ban. We had no choice, Doral protested. Our representative answers to the mining consortium. And now the consortium will learn what human ingenuity was really worth, Chen said. He handed Doral a small data chip. Maintenance codes for the basic life support systems. Everything else goes dark in 24 hours. As Chen boarded the ship, Doral called after him. What about the defense grid? The asteroid belt has pirate activity. Chen paused at the airlock 1 year after the Council's decree. The galaxy was changing in ways few had anticipated. What began as isolated shortages and system failures had evolved into widespread instability. Admiral Krell of the Galactic Defense Force paced the bridge of his flagship. Once, the sight of the massive vessel would have inspired awe. Now nearly a third of its systems were offline, its crew reduced to skeleton numbers. Status of the Orion Border Patrol? He asked his second-in-command. 6 ships operational out of 20, Admiral. came the grim reply. The rest are grounded due to maintenance issues or crew shortages. Krell's jaw tightened. The Predaxian pirates? 3 more merchant vessels taken in the past week. Reports suggest they've acquired military-grade weapons. From where? Unknown, sir. But without regular patrols, weapons depots in the outer sectors are vulnerable. Krell stared at the tactical display. Red warning icons blinked across previously secure regions. Humans made up 15% of our force, he muttered. How did their absence create such a gap? It wasn't just their numbers, his officer explained. They served in key positions, tactical analysis, engineering, special operations. And they were innovative in ways other species weren't. Meaning? They improvised, sir. Found solutions others wouldn't consider. Without them, we're following standard protocols against enemies who are adapting. A communication officer interrupted. Admiral, emergency transmission from Outpost Sigma 9. They're under attack. Deploy response team Alpha, Krell ordered. Alpha is responding to another attack in the Centauri sector, the officer replied. All other teams are committed. Krell closed his eyes briefly. Tell Sigma 9 to hold as long as possible. Help will come when available. As the officer relayed the message, Krell knew it was a death sentence. A year ago, such an attack would have been unthinkable. Now it was becoming routine. On the commerce world of New Proxima, once the galaxy's largest trading hub, Finance Minister Lorix reviewed the latest economic projections with growing alarm. Trade volume down 62%, she told the Emergency Council. Currency values fluctuating wildly across 17 major systems. The galactic credit has lost 40% of its value in 6 months. How is this possible? Asked a council member. Humans were just one species among hundreds. A species that facilitated trade across incompatible economies, Lorix explained. Their banking networks bridged different value systems. Their insurance companies underwrote risky but essential ventures. Their merchants found markets no one else could access. Surely we can replace these functions, another counselor suggested. Eventually, yes. But their systems were integrated in ways we're still discovering. They built redundancies and fail-safes into everything. As each one fails, we find 3 more dependencies we didn't know existed. The chamber fell silent as screens displayed collapsing market values and failing businesses. There's something else, Lorix added quietly. Many of the technologies we thought were developed by various council species were actually human innovations, licensed through shell companies. What? That's illegal, protested a counselor. Not technically, Lorix explained. Council law limits how much technology a single species can control. Humans found a loophole. They licensed their innovations through companies registered to other species. Legal but hidden. How widespread is this? Lorix's expression was grim. We've identified over 3,000 alien technologies that were actually human in origin, including nearly 70% of our medical advances in the past 50 years. The implications settled over the room like a dark cloud. Deep in council archives, Nix Terran and Chief Librarian Zoltek worked through ancient records. There, Nix Terran pointed to a historical file. The last time the council faced a multi-sector crisis of this magnitude. The Halvarian conflict, Zoltek read. Nearly 600 years ago. It took decades to resolve, and caused the collapse of the previous council structure, Nix Terran added. History repeats itself. This is different, Zoltek argued. The Halvarians were aggressive expansionists. Humans simply as left. Yet the effect is the same. The council is fracturing along old fault lines. As if to emphasize his point, their screens flashed with breaking news. 2 previously allied species had broken diplomatic relations over resource disputes. It was the 4th such break in a month. Without humans mediating, old rivalries are resurfacing, Nix Terran observed. Species that hated each other for millennia didn't suddenly become friends when they joined the council. Humans were neutral parties without ancient grudges. They could talk to everyone. You sound as if you admire them, Zoltek noted. I studied them for 20 years, Nix Terran replied. Their history is a cycle of self-destruction and rebirth. They nearly wiped themselves out 6 times, yet each time they emerged stronger, more unified. No other species has tested itself so thoroughly. Their research was interrupted by a priority alert. The Galactic Council was calling an emergency session. In orbit above Earth, General Williams walked through the newly completed Sentinel station. Through the viewport, she could see dozens of massive shield generators creating a faint blue web around the planet. Similar networks surrounded Mars, Venus, and the major moons and asteroid settlements. Shield network at 100%, reported her aide. Sol system is now fully protected and fully isolated, Williams added. Has there been any response to our warning buoys? 3 council ships approached. They read the messages and withdrew. Williams nodded. The buoys were simple. Sol system closed by council decree. Human technology active. Approach at your own risk. And the observation posts? Fully operational. We can see everything happening in council space without being detected. Williams turned as President Okafor entered the command center. Everyone stood at attention. At ease, Okafor said. Status report? Operation Silent Running is complete, Williams reported. Sol system is secured and self-sufficient. The quantum shield is functioning perfectly. And beyond our borders? Chaos, Madam President. Pirates attacking shipping lanes. Trade networks collapsing. Several border conflicts have erupted into open warfare. Okafor studied the tactical displays, exactly as predicted. And the Zuraxian situation? Williams brought up a new display showing a distant sector. Activity increasing. Long-range scans detect movement consistent with large-scale fleet operations. If they're awakening as our models suggested, the Council is in no position to respond. Okafor finished. She was silent for a moment. Have all our people returned home? The last transport arrived yesterday. 100% withdrawal achieved. And our allies? The 17 species that oppose the ban have received our secure communication channels. The Tellurians in particular have been valuable information sources. Okafor nodded. They were always the most insightful about human nature. Prepare a priority data packet for them. Include our latest Zuraxian intelligence. You think the Council will listen to warnings from the Tellurians when they ignored ours? No, Okafor said grimly. But when the crisis comes, I want the record to show they were warned. Twice. The emergency council session had been underway for 6 hours. What began as a structured meeting had devolved into open hostility between factions. My people are starving, shouted the representative from Hestelix Prime. We need emergency food shipments. With what ships? Countered another delegate. Half the transport fleet is inoperative. Perhaps if your world had maintained its own agricultural systems instead of relying on imports, suggested a third voice. Enough. High Counselor Zaxos slammed his staff down. This bickering solves nothing. We need solutions, Counselor Vrax stood. The solution is obvious. We must approach the humans and request their return. A mixture of agreement and outrage filled the chamber. Return? After we expelled them? Someone called out. They didn't wait to be expelled. Another argued. They abandoned us. Zaxos raised his hands for quiet. Counselor Vrax, are you formally proposing we rescind the expansion ban? I am, Vrax replied. Our fear of human potential led us to a disastrous decision. We must correct it, and if they refuse, their system is now surrounded by defenses we cannot penetrate. We must try, Vrax insisted, before things get worse. Before Zaxos could respond, the chamber doors burst open. A military officer rushed in. High Counselor, urgent news from the Outer Rim, he announced. The Zuraxian hive. They're on the move. A shocked silence fell over the room. Impossible, Zaxos finally said. The Zuraxians have been dormant for 3,000 years. Nevertheless, multiple monitoring stations confirm it, the officer reported. Massive energy signatures, thousands of ships emerging from their hibernation world. Nixtaran stepped forward. The humans warned us about this. 2 years ago, their deep space monitoring detected unusual activity in the Zuraxian system. They proposed a joint mission to investigate. A mission we rejected as unnecessary, Zaxos remembered. We believed their data was flawed, or fabricated to justify military expansion, added another counselor. Nix Terran's antennae quivered with suppressed emotion. They weren't trying to expand. They were trying to protect us, as they had been doing since they joined the council. The tactical officer cleared his throat. There's more. Boss. The diplomatic vessel Harmonious Accord approached the edge of Sol system with caution. Through the viewports, the crew could see the warning buoys floating in space, their messages clear and direct. Sol system closed by council decree. Human technology active. Approach at your own risk. High Counselor Zaxos stood on the bridge with Nix's Taran and a small delegation of council representatives. "No response to our communications," reported the ship's captain. "We've been broadcasting for 3 days. They're listening," Nix's Taran assured them. "They're just deciding if they want to answer." "The Zuraxian fleet has already destroyed 2 outposts," Zaxos said grimly. "We don't have time for games." "This isn't a game to them," Nix's Taran replied. "We're asking them to save people who rejected them." A sudden alert sounded. On the main screen, a small craft appeared, approaching from the direction of Mars. "Human vessel," the captain confirmed. "Single occupant." "Open a channel," Zaxos ordered. The screen flickered, revealing a human woman in a simple gray uniform. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Forces," she said calmly. "Your vessel has entered restricted space. State your purpose." Zaxos stepped forward. "Commander Chen, I am High Counselor Zaxos of the Galactic Council. We come seeking urgent audience with your government regarding a matter that threatens all life in the galaxy." Chen's expression remained neutral. "Transmit details of this threat. If our government deems it worthy of discussion, you will receive coordinates for a meeting point." "Commander, surely you understand." "Those are my instructions, High Counselor." "Comply or withdraw." The transmission ended. "Arrogant," sputtered one of the counselors. "After we came all this way." "Cautious," corrected Nixitaran. "Remember, the last official communication they received from us was an order confining them to this system." Zaxos nodded. "Send the Zuraxian data. All of it." 3 tense hours passed before Chen's ship reappeared. This time her message was brief. "Follow my vessel. Maintain your current speed and heading. Any deviation will be considered hostile." As they approached Earth, the council delegation gasped at what they saw. The planet was surrounded by a faintly shimmering energy field. Beyond it, massive orbital platforms hung in space, far larger and more advanced than anything the council possessed. "Those weren't there a year ago," whispered a counselor. "Yes, they were," Nixtaran said, "just not where we could see them. Their ship passed through the energy field, which rippled like water around them. Chen's vessel led them to a massive space station in high Earth orbit. Unity Station," she informed them as they docked. "Our government will meet you here." President Okafor sat at the head of the conference room table, flanked by military and scientific advisors. The council delegation sat opposite, clearly uncomfortable. "High Counselor," Okafor greeted Zaxos coolly. "This is an unexpected visit." "Madam President, thank you for receiving us," Zaxos began. "We come seeking human assistance against a threat to all sentient life, the awakening of the Zuraxian hive." "Yes, we're aware of the Zuraxian emergence," Okafor replied. "Our deep space monitoring has tracked them for nearly 3 years now." 3 years? Zaxos looked startled. "Your initial report to the council was just 2 years ago. We spent a year gathering conclusive evidence before bringing it to you," General Williams explained from beside Okafor. "Evidence you dismissed. A mistake we deeply regret," Zaxos admitted. "One of many, it seems." Okafor's expression remained neutral. "What exactly are you requesting, High Counselor?" "Military aid," Zaxos said simply. "The Zuraxians have already destroyed 2 outposts. Their main fleet will reach heavily populated systems within 60 days. The Defense Force is unprepared." "Unprepared," echoed Okafor. An interesting choice of words. Perhaps crippled by our absence would be more accurate. Zaxos flinched but nodded. "Yes, without human ships, crews, and technological support, our defenses are inadequate." "You confined us to this system," Williams reminded him. "Ordered our colonies abandoned. And now you want us to leave Sol to fight your war." "Not our war," Nixtaran interjected. "Everyone's war. The Zuraxians don't distinguish between council species and humans. They see all intelligent life as either threat or food." A silence fell over the room. Finally, Okafor spoke. "We need to consult with our full government. You will have quarters here on Unity Station. We'll reconvene tomorrow." As the council delegation was escorted out, General Williams turned to Okafor. "We're not actually considering this, are we?" "Of course we are," Okafor replied. "We've been preparing for the Zuraxian emergence since we first detected it. The only question is what conditions we set for our help." In his temporary quarters, Zaxos stared out at Earth below. After a lifetime in space habitats and artificial environments, the sight of a thriving natural world was both alien and compelling. A chime announced a visitor. Nixitaran. They've been busy, Nixitaran observed, gesturing at the massive orbital structures visible through the viewport. All this in just 1 year, Zaxos marveled. Their industrial capacity is frightening. It's not just 1 year's work, Nixitaran corrected him. These are the Omega projects, classified human developments they've been quietly advancing for decades. How do you know this? President Okafor granted me access to certain historical files. The humans began developing independent defense capabilities almost immediately after joining the Council. They recognized the pattern of how we treated new species. What pattern? Zaxos asked sharply. Integration, dependency, control, Nixitaran explained. Most species join the Council from a position of weakness. Humans joined as equals and were expected to become dependent. They played along while building all this in secret. Zaxos absorbed this information slowly. Were we wrong about them, Nixitaran? Not just politically, but fundamentally. I believe so. We saw their potential for violence and missed their capacity for protection. They weren't building weapons to threaten us. They were building shields to defend everyone. The next morning, the Council delegation entered a much larger chamber. President Okafor sat with her full cabinet and representatives from various human nations. High Counselor, Okafor began, we have reached a decision. Earth will assist against the Zuraxian threat. Visible relief spread through the Council delegation. However, Okafor continued, we have conditions. Of course, Zaxos said quickly, name them. First, the expansion ban is permanently revoked. Human colonies will be re-established with Council support. Zaxos nodded. Agreed. Second, humans will receive 5 permanent seats on the Council, with veto power over military matters. This caused murmurs among the delegation, but Zaxos nodded again. Acceptable. Third, Okafor continued, a joint scientific and defense initiative will be established, with equal human and Council leadership. No more hiding research or dismissing warnings. These terms are generous, Zaxos acknowledged. More than fair given our error in judgment. There is one more condition, Okafor said, her tone hardening slightly. The Council will publicly acknowledge that its treatment of humanity was based on unfounded fear rather than evidence, and that this prejudice endangered the entire galaxy. Zaxos hesitated. Such an admission would be unprecedented. Nixitaran leaned forward. High Counselor, if I may, this isn't just about human pride. It's about establishing a new foundation of honesty. If we cannot admit our mistakes, how can we prevent repeating them? After a moment, Zaxos nodded. Very well. We will make this acknowledgement. Then we have an agreement, Okafor said. General Williams will coordinate with your defense force immediately. 3 days later, aboard the massive human carrier Defiance, Admiral Krell watched in awe as human crews prepared for battle. The ship was 3 times the size of his largest vessel, with technology far beyond Council standards. We've identified the Zuraxian command structure, General Williams explained, pointing to tactical displays. They operate as a hive with distributed control nodes. Take out enough nodes, and the swarm becomes disorganized. Our previous encounters with them suggested no such vulnerability, Krell noted. That's because you attacked their worker drones, Williams replied. We've been studying them since we first detected activity. Our quantum sensors can distinguish between drone ships and control nodes. And these weapons? Krell gestured to strange devices being loaded onto smaller craft. Quantum disruption bombs, Williams explained. They target the unique frequency of the Zuraxian hive mind. Developed specifically for this threat. You created weapons designed to fight an enemy we told you didn't exist. Williams smiled thinly. We like to be prepared. The defense of humanity doesn't depend on whether the Council believes in a threat. Across the hangar, human crews worked alongside the few Council species with compatible training. The atmosphere was professional but tense. Your people don't seem pleased to be helping us, Krell observed. They're soldiers, Williams replied. They'll do their duty regardless of personal feelings. But yes, being ordered to abandon homes and friends across the galaxy left some bitterness. I can imagine, Krell said quietly. For what it's worth, many of us opposed the ban. We were overruled. History is full of good people who stood by while bad decisions were made, Williams noted. Let's hope we all learned something. At the edge of the Procyon system, the first major confrontation with the Zuraxian fleet was underway. Dozens of human warships, alongside the remnants of the Council Defense Force, engaged the 3 months into the Zuraxian War. The tide had turned. What began as a desperate defense had become a coordinated offensive. Human-led forces had pushed the invaders back to the borders of their home territory. Aboard the command carrier Resilience, Admiral Elena Sokolov studied the latest battle reports with satisfaction. 37 engagements, 37 victories. The Zuraxians are adapting more slowly than anticipated, noted her alien counterpart, Commander Thrix of the Arcturian fleet. Their tactics show decreasing cohesion. The quantum disruptors are working better than expected, Sokolov replied. Each encounter degrades their hive communication further. Thrix's compound eyes shifted, a sign of discomfort among his species. Admiral, may I speak freely? Of course. My people have served in the Defense Force for 8 generations. We prided ourselves on our tactical expertise, yet in 3 months I have learned more from human commanders than in 20 years of council service. Sokolov smiled slightly. Different perspectives have different advantages. It's more than that, Thrix insisted. The council military operated on tradition and hierarchy. Humans operate on, I don't know the right word, pragmatism, Sokolov suggested. We use what works, discard what doesn't, and aren't afraid to try new approaches. Our history forced us to adapt quickly or die. A history the council feared, Thrix observed. With reason, Sokolov acknowledged. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times. But that crucible forged something unique, a species that understands both the cost of war and the price of peace. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert. On the main display, a message appeared. The Zuraxians had requested communication. They've never attempted contact before, Thrix said, startled. Desperation changes priorities, Sokolov replied. Alert President Okafor and High Counselor Zaxos. This war may be ending sooner than expected. In the newly established Joint Council Chamber on Unity Station, representatives from human nations sat alongside delegates from major council species. The chamber's design symbolized the new relationship, a circular arrangement with no head position, all seats equal in size and prominence. President Okafor and High Counselor Zaxos entered together, a calculated show of unity. We have received a formal communication from the Zuraxian hive, Okafor announced. They are requesting cessation of hostilities and proposing territorial boundaries. Murmurs spread through the chamber. They're surrendering? Asked a counselor. Not exactly, Zaxos clarified. They're proposing a negotiated peace. The Zuraxians have never done this in their recorded history. What changed? Someone called out. General Williams stepped forward. Our analysis suggests the quantum disruptors have done more than just confuse their tactics. They've fundamentally altered the Zuraxian hive mind structure. Meaning what exactly? Asked a human representative. Meaning individual Zuraxians are developing something like independent thought, Williams explained. The workers and drones that once functioned as pure extensions of the central consciousness are experiencing autonomy for the first time. And this is causing them to seek peace? It's causing internal conflict, Williams clarified. Some factions want to continue fighting. Others, including their new emergent leadership, recognize the war is unwinnable and are seeking terms. Okafor addressed the assembly. We have an opportunity not just to end this war, but potentially to transform an ancient enemy into a stable neighbor. The question before this council is, what terms should we set? The debate lasted for hours. Many council species with long memories of previous Zuraxian attacks wanted harsh restrictions. Others, including most humans, argued for more moderate terms that would allow the transformed Zuraxians to develop peacefully. Finally, Zaxos called for order. We have heard all perspectives, he said. Now we must decide. I propose we accept the Zuraxian offer with 3 conditions. 1. They remain within their current borders. 2. They allow monitoring stations along those borders. And 3. They permit scientific exchange regarding their new social structure. I second this proposal, Okafor added. With one addition, we offer humanitarian aid to help them transition. If they're evolving beyond their hive structure, they'll face enormous social challenges. The vote passed with an overwhelming majority. As the session ended, Nixis Taran approached Okafor. A surprising addition, he commented. offering aid to a species that would have consumed us all. Okafor smiled. Not so surprising. Humans have a habit of helping former enemies rebuild. We've learned it leads to better long-term outcomes than punishment. The Council has much to learn from human history, Nixtaran acknowledged. And humans have much to learn from the Council's long experience, Okafor replied. That's the point of this new arrangement, combining the best of both perspectives. 6 months later, the formal treaty with the Zuraxians was signed. The galaxy entered a period of reconstruction. Human colonies were re-established, this time with Council support. Trading networks were rebuilt. Damaged worlds were restored, on harmonious unity. Now just one of several Council administrative centers rather than the sole seat of power, High Counselor Zaxos met with the human diplomatic team to finalize the new Council charter. The last provisions have been approved, Ambassador Chen informed him. Equal representation, transparent research sharing, and mutual defense obligations. A very different council than the one I've served for 50 years, Zaxos observed. Change was necessary, Chen replied. The old structure wasn't designed for genuine partnership between equals. No, it wasn't, Zaxos admitted. It was designed to maintain stability by limiting the influence of any one species. We feared change more than stagnation. And now we understand that true stability comes from adaptation, not rigid control. Zaxos looked out the window at the busy spaceport. Human ships now docked alongside vessels from hundreds of species. There is something I've wanted to ask you, Ambassador. Yes? When the Council issued the expansion ban, you left without protest. Was that planned? Did you anticipate our mistake and its consequences? Chen was silent for a moment. Not exactly. We didn't plan to leave. But once the ban was issued, we saw an opportunity to demonstrate our value through our absence. And yes, we had preparations in place for potential Council rejection. Operation Silent Running was designed years earlier. So the timing of the Zuraxian emergence, pure coincidence, Chen assured him, though a fortunate one for galactic unity. Nothing brings former adversaries together like a common threat. Zaxos nodded thoughtfully. Your people are remarkable, Ambassador. Capable of both careful planning and rapid adaptation. I understand now why the old Council feared you. And the new Council? The new Council needs you, as recent events have proven beyond any doubt. On Earth, in the historic city of Geneva, President Okafor dedicated a memorial to those lost in the Zuraxian War. Representatives from all Council species attended, a visible symbol of the new era of cooperation. Today we honor those who gave their lives defending not just their own worlds, but all worlds, she told the assembled crowd. Human and non-human alike, they fought together against extinction. Their sacrifice reminds us that despite our differences, we share a common desire to live, to grow, and to build a better future for those who come after us. After the ceremony, Okafor met privately with General Williams and several key advisors. Phase 1 of the integration plan is proceeding on schedule, Williams reported. Human technologies are being shared appropriately. Joint defense forces are establishing new protocols. The transition has been smoother than expected. The crisis created opportunity, Okafor observed. Nothing motivates cooperation like survival. Some Council species remain cautious, noted a diplomatic advisor. There's still underlying fear of human capabilities. As there should be, Okafor replied. Healthy caution is appropriate. We didn't fight for dominance, we fought for partnership. But partnership requires honest acknowledgement of strengths and weaknesses on all sides. And the Omega projects? Asked Williams. The Council has requested full disclosure of all human military technology. Okafor smiled. We'll share what's necessary for joint security. Some technologies remain under human control for now. Trust must be earned over time. They won't like that, Williams warned. They'll accept it, Okafor countered, because the alternative, facing the next crisis alone, is unthinkable after what they've experienced. 5 years later, a new educational center opened on harmonious unity. For the first time, young beings from all species, including humans, gathered to learn together. The building itself was a marvel of joint engineering, combining Council stability with human innovation. Nixis Tehran, now serving as the center's first director, welcomed the inaugural class. You represent the future of our galaxy, he told the diverse group. The first generation to grow up in this new era of true cooperation. After the ceremony, he gave a tour to a special visitor, former High Counselor Zaxos, now retired but still influential. Impressive, Zaxos commented as they watched students from a dozen species working together on a project. I would not have believed this possible 10 years ago. Much has changed, Nixitaran agreed, though some things remain constant. Oh? Nixitaran gestured toward a group of human students.